In this video, I want to talk to you about 10 things that you have control over. When it came to filming this video, I did struggle a little bit. These are hard concepts to try and get your head around. So much of us live our lives passively thinking that we're not in control, that things are just the way they are, I can't do anything about it, I am just the way I am, I can't change. And I think a lot of this is very, very problematic. It boxes us in, it limits our capabilities, it makes us settle for less for the types of relationships we get into, for the type of friendships that we have. It makes us open to toxicity and toxic relationships from our families and friends. It limits our job prospects. It really limits the amazing bounds that our lives could go to if we stopped thinking this way. So in many ways, this video comes off the back of some of my own personal struggles and my own personal failures to take control of some of these things. But I can assure you that once you start taking back control, your life is going to go to places that you never even dreamed of. The first thing that you have control over is the boundaries that you set. This one has taken me a long time to realise, and I still don't think I'm fully there yet because it is and will always be an ongoing process. But people only treat you the way that you let them. Boundaries is such a huge thing in your friendships, with your family, in your relationships, at work, with your children, and with strangers. I can't really think of any situation off the top of my head where boundaries don't come into play. If you are in negative or toxic relationships, then part of it is because you have allowed or enabled toxic behaviour by not establishing or creating boundaries. How we do this is another question for another day, and I will be doing a video on this. But know for sure that even though you may be feeling stuck and frustrated because of certain situations, things do not have to be or remain this way. There's a cycle here that needs to be broken. The next thing you have control over are your words. And by this I mean what you say and how you say it. Some people naturally seem better at communicating things brilliantly in a way that the listener really hears it, but some people struggle with this. I present another way of thinking about this. Could it be that the speaker has become natural at this by years of practicing and honing this skill? This is something that I will be doing a video on as well, as I think that it's such a fantastic thing that can absolutely 180 people's relationships, their careers, and their lives in general. Speech is something that we practice, and communication is a skill that we can get better at. I've said this before, but a skill is like a muscle, and a muscle can be developed and worked on. Also, when it comes to communication, we might be more confident in some situations and not in others. We might be more articulate in some situations again and not so articulate in others. There's something to be said about this, and it just shows that it's not that you are good or bad at communicating something. There's layers upon layers of nuance when it comes to this kind of topic, and it's absolutely something that you control and absolutely something you can get better at. The next thing you have control over is how you spend your time. We have 24 hours in a day. Roughly 8 of that is given to sleep, so 16. Some of us spend part of that time working. But what are we actually doing in the rest of that time? Are we surrounding ourselves with negativity from the news, social media, with relationships and negative friendships? What would happen if we even spent 30 minutes out of the 1,440 minutes that we have in a day working on ourselves, our health, our minds, our goals? How far could we really come? Just try it and see what happens. The next thing we have control over is who we follow on social media. If there are any pages or channels or influencers on social media who are making you question your self-worth, taking too much of your time, or derailing you from your goals, then it's time to take back that control. Unfollow and unsubscribe now. Even if that's me, I would hate to think that I'm part of something that is taking away from someone. Start curating your feeds, your home pages, and start minimizing or completely removing anything that is not bringing in positivity to you. What we expose ourselves to on social media is one of the easiest things that we have control over. We only have one life, so why are we spending any of it absorbing in negative and toxic information? The next thing that we have control over is owning up to and apologizing for your mistakes. We all make mistakes, but how we deal with them is very telling of our character. There is an art to the perfect apology, and I think that this is something that we can all get better at doing. I think society's conditioned us to see apology as a sign of weakness, but asking someone for forgiveness when you have wronged them is such a great place to start. Another thing that you have control over is your habits. Now this is a tough one because forming new habits and breaking old ones is one of the toughest things that people can do. But it is within our control. How much time, effort and focus we dedicate towards breaking old and forming new habits, and then the steps we choose to get there, is entirely within our control. The next thing we all have control over is our routine. Your morning, your night, your daily routine and your work routine. There are so many combinations that you can follow, and everyone's routine is so unique. But I really don't know of anyone productive who doesn't have at least one of these fairly down. So I don't have a set morning routine because with my baby each morning looks so different. And similarly with my work, each day looks different as well. So it's a bit ambitious for me to commit to a solid morning routine. But I do try where I can to strive for my optimal night routine. This is something that before having a child I was really hot on, but it has really fallen to the wayside a little bit, and my priority has been my daughter's routine over mine. And my health, my self-care, my productivity has absolutely suffered because of this. But since bringing in a flexible night routine, I'm literally feeling like a completely different person in all the best ways. The next thing we have control over is how we operate in our relationships. You define where you fit into your relationships. In some relationships you might be more passive, in others you might be more dominant. In some you might be the giver, in others you might take more. But none of this is static. You have the power at any given moment to redefine your role and how you operate in your relationships. There's so much power and beauty in this, I can't even begin to tell you. The next thing you have control over is how much work you put into something. It's really easy for us to get distracted and derailed by our own or other people's drama, by social media, by mindless scrolling, and I'm absolutely guilty of this. But ultimately, we have complete control over how much effort we dedicate to something. This is a bit different from time because we have some limits on the time we have in a day, but whether or not we put 10, 50 or 10% of effort into what we're choosing to give our time to is entirely in our control. And the final one for this video is how you treat other people. Let's face it, there are some really crappy people with who we get caught in some really crappy situations over. Although we don't have 100% control over how other people behave, we do have control over the boundaries we set, as I mentioned earlier, and we have full and complete control over how we behave towards other people. There are some situations where we don't put forward our best selves, because quite frankly none of us are perfect, but this does not mean that we don't have the power to control our behaviour. No matter how angry we are, if someone we respect and admire came into the room, we would put forward the best version of ourselves that we are able to at that moment. People often feel that their responses are driven entirely by other people's behaviour, and although yes, other people's behaviour can trigger things within us, we then have a choice about what we choose to do about it. When it comes to things that we can control, I am aware that there are going to be exceptions to this. For example, someone who is in an oppressed state, a very young child, or people with limited physical capacity, just to name a few. But for the majority of people, we have an incredible amount of control over the actions that we take day to day. Let me know in the comment section which of these resonated with you the most. And make sure to hit the subscribe button for more content on mental health, productivity and lifestyle. That's it from me for now.